This video will cover the settings section in Total Online. When you're logged into Total Online, the settings section is available on the left-hand side. So the settings section is used to pre-populate planning data when you create new planning scenarios for your clients. You'll want to tailor the items available in this settings section to reflect the common planning defaults and assumptions that you use in your practice. All of the planning assumptions that are pre-populated from the settings section when you create a new plan can all be changed within that specific planning scenario. Two things to point out before we get to the individual items within settings. The first of which is that if you make changes to the settings, it will not impact any of the planning scenarios that you've already created. And the second item to point out is that the settings section is shared for a company. So if you have multiple advisors logging into Total Online within your company, any changes that you make in settings will impact your coworkers as well. So getting into it here, the first item under settings is asset classes. And the asset classes are used to provide the asset allocation reports that display the client's current and suggested allocation. You'll want to change the default asset classes to reflect the classes that you use in your practice, and you can have up to 21 asset classes in Total Online. Make sure to enter in the name and the abbreviation, as those are both required. Optionally, rates of return can be associated with asset classes. By checking autofill these rates of return when entering assets and providing the rates of return per asset class, the return will be set as soon as you select an asset class. So for example, if you enter in an asset and then we selected the class of large cap stock, the rate of return would be populated as 2% interest, dividends, capital gains, and appreciation for a total rate of return of 8%. Asset class allocations are used to provide the recommended asset allocation based on the client's risk tolerance level. You'll need to enter in the suggested allocations for each risk tolerance level and ensure that the total allocation amounts to 100%. Next, we have cash flow surplus, and when a surplus occurs, the projections will reinvest that surplus according to the allocation set here. So you'll want to enter in the percentage that should be allocated to each taxation type. You can change the surplus allocation at a future age by entering in the age to change the surplus and the new surplus allocation. Default rates starts with rates of return, and these rates of return are only used when you're not entering in rates for individual assets. So if you were to enter in your assets and leave the rates of return 0, that will tell the program that you want to use the default rates of return for the projection. It's important to point out this checkbox, override at retirement. If this box is checked, the projections will change to use the retirement rates regardless of if rates have been entered on the individual assets or not. With this box checked, the rates will change to the retirement column as soon as individual 1 reaches their retirement age. Below the default rates of return are some additional rates, including the default rates of inflation for pre- and post-retirement and the Social Security benefit increase rate. The first item there is the discount rate for net present value calculations, and this is used to compute the amount of capital required today to fund future income shortfalls, and typically this is a conservative after-tax rate of return. Easy money options are used specifically for the easy money projections. The first section is used for easy money shortage solutions. For retirement shortfalls, the shortage solutions will calculate the savings required if that money were to earn the 3 different rates of return entered here, and assume that the additions will increase yearly at the rate entered under increase rate on needed additions. The second section, Tax Favored Investment Educational Report,